Sony ruined the PlayStation 5. It's now a piece of trash. I mean, I know it's hard to hear that, but it's true. I loved the PlayStation. It was one of the first consoles I owned. The first console I ever owned was actually a Nintendo, and I skipped over the Super Nintendo. I went straight to Sega Genesis, and then from Sega Genesis, I graduated to the PlayStation. And the PlayStation was absolutely amazing for me. What's crazy is that back in the PlayStation days, when I first got a PlayStation, I didn't even know that you needed a memory card to save your games. And I would literally play, I'm so embarrassed, but I would literally play through Final Fantasy VII, and I'd get all the way through Midgar, and then I would say, "Is that the end of it?" And I would just do it over and over and over until I finally learned, oh, you need a memory card to save your game, and then you can keep on going. And I did this so many times, thinking this was the entirety of the game. But back in those days, and I know it's like ignorance, but back in those days, I was young. We didn't have access to the internet. When I was 13 years old, the internet was just becoming a thing. It was dial up. It was not in most houses. I mean, I didn't start using the internet, like dial up internet, until I was around 15 or 16. And that's the first time I ever just like experienced the internet, saw the internet, like, oh wow, this is the internet. And once we finally had it at home, it was dial up, and dial up was absolutely horrible. I hated dial up. And then eventually we got DSL, and DSL was just like an entirely new world. But it just wasn't developed the way it is today. You look at the Sony PlayStation 5, and the Sony PlayStation 5 is total crap. It is nothing like its predecessors. When the original PlayStation came out, it was so revolutionary because for the first time you could take PC games and play them on a home console. So back in those days, you need like a $3,000, $5,000 PC to run these types of games. And now here you are with this console that can do 3D games, and they look amazing, they play well, and the sound quality is through the roof because they're using CDs, and it was just incredible. And you started off with games like Ridge Racer, Jet Moto. I mean, you have Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX. I did not like Final Fantasy IX. I thought it was hot garbage compared to the previous ones. I was like, I was more of a guy that was into the battle systems, but you get my point. There was Legend of Dragoon. I didn't play Legend of Dragoon, but it was pretty popular. There was so many amazing titles. Tekken. Tekken was absolutely brilliant. And what's so insane is like when you compare Tekken 1 then to Tekken 2, Tekken 2 was just like, what the heck? How did they really kick it up a notch? Like there was so much advancements back in those days, costumes, all of this stuff. Like they were doing things during that era that like these days it's like they're like, oh, it's like you literally have to pull teeth. Like back in those days, you had like a million different costume sets. You had all of these extra features, all of this stuff that today the developers are like, oh, it's so hard to do in 2024. You don't know how hard it is to develop games. It's so much more expensive, which makes no sense at all. Like these people that are crying about how hard it is and expensive it is to develop games, guys. Pal World, the Pokemon with firearms game that has been taking the world by storm. It was developed in Unreal, and like the guy who developed it started off with a $10,000 budget, didn't even know how to code. Like most of the people involved in the project didn't know anything about games, and it was just insane. These companies have grown way too big. Back in those days, you had to literally build your own system. Like there was no Unreal Engine that you can just build your games in. Like you had to basically build your own engine and then go from there. And these companies were doing that back then. And they did not have the resources that they have now. They did not have Unreal Engine. They were not able to create assets in just moments, seconds using tools and digital environments, just out of nowhere. They did not have this, and they're like crying about, oh, the environment, like it's so expensive. This is absolute crap. It's greed. It is absolute greed. You have the creator of Tekken screeching and hollering about this. You look at the PlayStation 5, and the PlayStation 5 has no games. There's like a total of what, like 5 exclusive games. The best looking PlayStation 5 games is, if I recall, the best looking PlayStation 5 game is Ratchet and Clank, and that came out like a long time ago, like at the beginning of the generation. That was it. And then they have Spider-Man, and Spider-Man basically looks the same as it did on PlayStation 4. Final Fantasy, remake, which is basically should be on other consoles. And I'm suspicious about Final Fantasy remake. I'll tell you the reason why. The sales haven't been good, and even before the game came out, I suspected that it would possibly end up on PlayStation 4 because PlayStation 4 has such a large install base. While Sony has said that they were planning to like wind down, stop releasing games for PlayStation 4 maybe in 2025. I don't know about that because they said that they're going to continue supporting the system all the way through 2025. This was like a year or two ago. And then now they're saying that the PlayStation 5 generation is winding down. It's in the later stages. So it's like, and don't expect any first party games for the PlayStation 5 until 2025. That's kind of frightening. That's really, really frightening. And to say that the PlayStation 5 is in its latter stages of life is just like, what the hell? Compared to Xbox and Game Pass, at this point, for a lot of guys, people just enjoy casual gaming. Game Pass makes more sense, but just understand we're heading towards an all digital future where the ultimate goal is where you will own nothing and be happy. But yeah, I mean, PlayStation 5 in terms of power, it's just not as powerful as it should be compared to the PlayStation 4. We just don't see that big leap technologically. Like you compare Gran Turismo on the PlayStation 4 to Gran Turismo on the PlayStation 5. And aside from things like ray tracing, it's just not all that much better. You compare Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to Final Fantasy VII Remake, and again, while there's some graphical improvements, it's not significant enough to say, "Hey, this is a major leap." It's like it's more than some people like to say, "Oh, we've just reached the uncanny valley." Well, the truth is that this generation of consoles just wasn't very powerful to begin with. Like, when the PlayStation 5 came out, it was already underpowered. It was already underpowered. Like, this was the first generation, I think, one of the first generations where when the console came out, it did not like it wasn't ahead of like PC computing. Like PC gamers just saw the PlayStation 5 and they were like womp womp. Like the hardware was literally already out of date. It was already out of it was literally outdated by the time it came out. Part of that is because Sony moved over to AMD processors, so it's like it's understandable, but it's like they're custom made, so you expect that there's supposed to be some good juju in there, and like, bro, it just wasn't cutting it. Sony has like collapsed. Sony used to be a juggernaut, and now basically all of their money is coming from the PlayStation 5, and anime. I mean, they're making, but mostly the PlayStation 5. Like, that's essentially their only real business right now. Like, they're starving for cash. And I don't know how much longer Sony can actually keep the show going. Just like how Sega had to ultimately end up shutting down and focusing on just making games. I don't know what's going to happen with Sony. Because, like, for example, we're in the point in the console generation where they should be dropping prices, and they're basically like they're just gonna focus on making money. And instead they're like, okay, we're gonna drop a PlayStation 5 Pro supposedly in later 2024, when in reality we still haven't even seen what the PlayStation 5 can do yet. It's a complete betrayal to people who bought the PlayStation 5. And it's like, oh yeah, buy this, and the games can look a little bit better, and hey, you're gonna be able to play GTA 6 in its best possible state. And I'm just thinking to myself, dude, if this is the case, I will pick up an Xbox One S. I'll pick up an Xbox One S because it's so much cheaper. It makes a lot more sense. I have access to Game Pass, and I will play, GTA 6 when it comes out in 2030 on I'm just messing. Well, I don't know. If it actually comes out on this generation of consoles, I will play it on Xbox One S. It'll probably be decent performance, and I don't and guess what? I really don't have to, make this major investment in a PlayStation 5. It's kind of stupid. Like I just don't see the purpose of owning a PlayStation 5 at this point. It's big, it's bulky, and what value am I getting from it? It's expensive. I don't know. and the thing is, I also have a Steam Deck at this point, so that's another big thing to That's another very very big thing to consider. I have a Steam Deck. I love my Steam Deck, and it probably will be at least compatible with Steam Deck. I'm thinking play GTA 6, so because it's gonna come to PC, but although it might take a while later. And the thing is, like, I just don't feel like upgrading because, like, after getting a Steam Deck, like, I don't play as much as I should, but I feel at peace with my Steam Deck. Like, for me, it's like if it's not on Steam Deck, then I'm not gonna play it. And the thing is, and then that's another thing. Like, I'm not gonna just pick up an Xbox One S just to play GTA 5. Like, I skipped over a lot of GTA 6. I skipped over a lot of GTA 5. I played the initial game, but I didn't play the GTA Online. And honestly, if it's not available to me, then I'm just not going to really be bothered. So, like, I'm happy with Steam Deck. I've got an OLED, and I'm just living that Steam Deck life. Sony ruined the PlayStation 5. It's now a piece of trash. What do you guys think regarding this comment and everything we discussed here today? I want to hear your opinions on this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And cheers.